Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into a critical and often stigmatized topic, addiction. Specifically, we'll explore the stigma of addiction from both social and philosophical perspectives. How does society's perception of addiction affect individuals and communities? What philosophical insights can help us understand and address this stigma? In this video, we'll explore these questions and consider ways to foster more compassionate and supportive attitudes toward addiction. Let's get started. Section 1. Understanding stigma. What is stigma? Stigma is a powerful social phenomenon that involves labeling, stereotyping, and discriminating against individuals based on certain characteristics or conditions. In the context of addiction, stigma manifests as negative attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors directed toward individuals who struggle with substance use disorders. Sociologist Irving Goffman described stigma as a form of social disapproval that leads to the devaluation and marginalization of individuals. This social disapproval can have profound effects on the lives of those who experience it, influencing their self-esteem, mental health, and access to resources. Types of stigma. Public stigma. Public stigma refers to the negative attitudes and beliefs held by society at large toward individuals with addiction. This can include stereotypes that people with addiction are weak, morally flawed, or dangerous. Self-stigma. Self-stigma occurs when individuals internalize the negative beliefs and attitudes of society, leading to feelings of shame, guilt, and low self-worth. This can exacerbate the challenges of addiction and make it harder for individuals to seek help. Structural stigma. Structural stigma involves the policies, practices, and laws that systematically disadvantage individuals with addiction. This can include barriers to healthcare, employment, and housing, as well as discriminatory practices within the criminal justice system. Section 2. Social reflections on addiction stigma. Historical context. The stigma surrounding addiction has deep historical roots. In many cultures, substance use has been viewed through a moralistic lens, with individuals who struggle with addiction often seen as morally weak or lacking self-control. This perspective has been reinforced by religious, legal, and medical institutions over time. During the temperance movement in the 19th and early 20th centuries, addiction was framed as a moral failing, leading to punitive approaches to treatment and policy. This legacy continues to influence public attitudes and policies toward addiction today. Media representation. The media plays a significant role in shaping public perceptions of addiction. Often, media portrayals of addiction are sensationalized and stigmatizing, emphasizing negative stereotypes and reinforcing harmful myths. This can contribute to public stigma and hinder efforts to promote a more compassionate understanding of addiction. Section 3. Philosophical insights on addiction stigma. Moral responsibility and blame. One of the central philosophical issues related to addiction stigma is the question of moral responsibility. If addiction is viewed as a matter of personal choice, individuals may be blamed for their condition and seen as deserving of their suffering. This perspective aligns with the moral model of addiction, which views substance use as a reflection of moral weakness. However, many philosophers argue that this view is overly simplistic and fails to account for the complex factors that contribute to addiction. For example, philosopher Thomas Scanlon argues that moral responsibility should be understood in terms of an individual's capacity for rational self-governance. If addiction undermines this capacity, it may mitigate the individual's responsibility and call for a more compassionate response. Determinism and free will. The debate between determinism and free will is also relevant to the stigma of addiction. If addiction is understood as a result of deterministic factors, such as genetics, neurobiology, and social environment, it challenges the notion that individuals are fully responsible for their condition. This perspective aligns with the disease model of addiction, which views addiction as a chronic, relapsing brain disease. Philosophers like Daniel Dennett argue for a compatibilist approach, suggesting that free will and determinism can coexist. This view acknowledges the role of deterministic factors in addiction while still recognizing the individual's capacity for choice and change. A compatibilist perspective can help foster a more nuanced and compassionate understanding of addiction, reducing stigma and promoting supportive interventions. Existential and phenomenological perspectives. Existential and phenomenological philosophies offer valuable insights into the lived experience of addiction and stigma. Existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre emphasize the importance of individual freedom and responsibility, but also recognize the profound challenges that addiction poses to personal agency. From this perspective, addressing addiction stigma requires acknowledging the complexity of human experience and the existential struggles faced by individuals with addiction. Phenomenological approaches, such as those of Maurice Merleau-Ponty, emphasize the importance of understanding addiction from the first-person perspective. This involves recognizing the subjective experience of stigma and its impact on the individual's sense of self and agency. By focusing on the lived experience of addiction, phenomenological approaches can help promote empathy and reduce stigma. Section 4, Addressing the Stigma of Addiction. Changing public attitudes. One of the most effective ways to reduce stigma is through education and awareness. Public campaigns that challenge stereotypes and provide accurate information about addiction can help shift public attitudes and reduce stigma. Personal stories and testimonials from individuals with lived experience of addiction can also be powerful tools for promoting empathy and understanding. Promoting compassionate policies. Addressing structural stigma requires changes in policies and practices that disadvantage individuals with addiction. This includes expanding access to treatment and recovery services, promoting harm reduction approaches, and addressing discriminatory practices within the criminal justice system. Policies that treat addiction as a public health issue rather than a criminal justice issue can help reduce stigma and support individuals in their recovery. Supporting individuals with addiction. At an individual level, fostering supportive and non-judgmental relationships can help mitigate the impact of stigma. This involves listening to and validating the experiences of individuals with addiction, offering empathy and support, and advocating for their rights and dignity. Peer support groups and recovery communities can also provide valuable social support and reduce feelings of isolation and shame. Conclusion. In this video, we've explored the complex issue of addiction stigma from social and philosophical perspectives. By understanding the historical roots, media influences, and philosophical dimensions of stigma, we can develop more compassionate and effective approaches to addressing addiction. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the stigma of addiction. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more thought-provoking content on philosophy and mental health. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep striving for a deeper understanding of yourself and the world around you. Boro.